Hey guys, welcome back to Born Again to Live. It is a Thursday, and I just want to remind everybody that we have a Facebook page, Born Again to Live the podcast. I'd love to hear from you guys. Who all's out there that's been listening? You got questions? You got comments? I'll take a cat meme, just anything. Like I want to hear from some listeners. So encouraging you to reach out. But here we are on episode 203, and I got my good buddy Eric Miller with me.
Is he here? Nah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think you're in a post-lunch coma.
He's in La La Land, sleeping. Need a power nap.
Nope. There's only time for power aid. No power naps, Eric. Sorry.
So yesterday I left you with a cliffhanger of they grow up.
Yeah.
All right. So the thought that's been rattling around in my brain that got put there by somebody, I don't know who. In Matthew 18, 3 and 4, it says, "Truly I say unto you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like a child is the greatest of the kingdom of heaven." And the thought that the person put in my brain is, Jesus says to come to him like a child.
Right.
With childlike faith, not childish faith.
Right.
Now Amy saw what I was going at. Like that, not the childish faith. Childish means that you do stupid stuff and it's okay. Childlike means that you believe because someone told you that. So your mother comes to you and says, this milk is good for you, but it will not hurt you. And you believe them.
Yeah.
That's childlike faith. Childish faith is, what would be a good example of childish faith? Would be like,
I mean, I think it would reflect in your prayer life, right? If you're praying for a pony and you don't even have a yard, like, come on, man. Like, childish faith is like, I don't need a Porsche. Well, why? Like, why? I went to get to high school? You don't need a Porsche.
Childlike faith is believing God can do all things.
Yes.
And believing it, not just being like, well, I know more than that guy, and I'm not going to do it. That's not childlike faith. Not childish faith, though.
Yeah. Well, 3 words come to mind, Eric, when I'm really thinking about that is, as a child, like you said, there's this trust, there's love, and then there's authority.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that's kind of embodies God the Father, and that's what he requires of us, that we submit to his authority, we trust him, and we know that he loves us. And so there is no fear in trusting God, Perfect love drives out all fear. God's not going to do anything that's going to harm us or hurt us. So it's, that childlike faith is a beautiful thing.
I think that when the guy was talking, I don't even remember who it was talking about it. He's like, there's a lot of people out here doing childish faith, not childlike faith. And it made you think, like, which way am I going about this? Like, I always joke that I'm a 4-year-old, but am I a 4-year-old that just completely trusts my God?
Yeah. Or
am I a 4-year-old who wants to act like a 4-year-old?
Right.
Or a 41-year-old that wants to act like a 4-year-old.
So. Well, and, when we're going back to idols and we were talking about, intellect, there are going to be those people that are like, oh, Eric, don't be so ignorant as to think God can really do all this that you believe him to be. Like, the world will try to convince us that our childlike faith is born out of ignorance, but I think, to me, the funny thing that God does is he reaches people, not, nobody says like, well, I grew up in the church and at 4 I had faith and I was born again and I believed ever since. Like, it happens so often when people are in the middle of their lives. They've lived their life. They've experienced stuff. It is, it's not this ignorant bliss that we are brainwashed into since the age of 2 or 3. And a lot of people in this world think that, Eric. Like, they don't, they think, oh, you must be so brainwashed to believe that God can heal, that God parted the waters. And, as I like to say, like, if God can't do these things, he's not worthy of my worship. Like, he really isn't. So yeah, you can't box God in.
So this barbecue gig that I had over the weekend, it was a bluegrass festival. Well, to get to it, we had to go by this couple Amish farms. And the person that was with me was talking about the Amish. And they're like, talking about how they don't have electricity. And we went through a couple things. And they're like, so what, do they go to the doctors? And I'm like, no, they don't go to the doctors. Because what if the woman's pregnant and something happens, and are they going to lose both mother and child? And I'm like, it happens a lot in the Amish community that they just die. And our joke was that the reason, like this time of year in West Virginia, it gets dark at like 6 o'clock, it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's dark till 8 o'clock. So it's like, and she's like, what do they do for at night? And I'm like, that's why they have so many kids. You can only lay there a little longer than you're bored. So,
Eric, you're taking this podcast down on area.
But anyways, no, back on drugs. We were talking about the Amish, and she's like, so that sounds like a cult of the way they believe sometimes. And I'm like, it kind of could be. And so then we got to talking about other like cultures that we live in. And she was talking about like the Jehovah's Witnesses could be a cult like type thing. And so it was a really interesting conversation that we had on some of that stuff. But where I'm going with that is that if you can't look at that stuff with a faith in God almost, then you're childish.
Yeah.
Childlike. I can go into it blissfully happy and be like, yeah, it's all good. We're all going to heaven. But you got to be like, I don't know what their belief system is, and I don't know why they believe what they believe. And are they just creating a void in some part of their life so that they're filling it with something else? And they may call it God, but it's not really God. So it was an interesting conversation about cults.
Yeah.
And this is a person who I'm going to classify as non-Christian.
Yeah.
That I got to have this conversation with, but I think they're to the point where they're having childlike faith because they're like questioning.
Right.
Asking.
Yeah.
And that's what children do. They ask. They're questioning. They're not just oblivious and going, I know it all and I'm a know-it-all.
Yeah.
No, they're like, I want to know more. I want to understand more.
Yeah.
And so they go to God in prayer and they say, God, is this a cult? Show me the faults of this religion or whatever. So this goes back to yesterday's conversation with, is a wait a no?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to grow up. Sometimes you need to slow down.
Yes.
Before you get your answer.
Well, and I mean, the Bible is full of so many examples. So like when you're asking yourself, is God asking me to wait? And I think you've even said it, well, is he giving you an answer yet? And I'm like, no, well, there's your answer. You're obviously waiting, but just because God is waiting to act and answer a prayer, that doesn't mean it's a no.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a wait. And, you know, you got to read all all the context of Scripture to know that, okay, well, he's weighing your heart. He's making sure that this is something that is, is for the right reasons. He wants to know this is something that's going to glorify God, and it's not something that's going to pull you further away from him. And, and don't do one of these prayers where it's like, well, God, if you really loved me or if you were really real, you'd give me this.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to pray that way when you need faith, when you need to know God is there. Show me you're real. Like, there's nothing wrong with that kind of faith, but don't be like, you're going to get me that hot guy to take me to prom, or you're not the God I think you are. Don't play that game with God. He can't be mocked. But, again, that is that childish faith that says, oh, it's all about me. Because to your point, Eric, kids, another thing I was thinking about what kids do is they ask a lot of questions, right? Almost annoyingly a lot of questions at times, but they do. They want to get to the bottom of things. And kids are also observers.
Yeah.
They don't have all the answers, but they kind of just take everything in around them. But that is good childlike faith. But the childish faith is the tantrum that says, you give me what I want or I'm going to cry.
Yeah. So there's a difference when somebody says, I'm a child of God. Don't be childish.
Yeah.
Childlike.
That's it.
All right. So that's a tangent that we started yesterday and finished today. I'm thinking about episode 200. Man, Amy introduced the word tangent a long time ago.
I mean, that pretty much was out of the gate. But
all right. So we're moved on into the growth book. Book 3 of the discipleship series, day 14. And this is one that is really hard.
Okay.
Is it your responsibility when you're praying to God? That's what you got to ask yourself. Check your responsibility level.
Okay.
So if you're coming to God with a situation is it my responsible to handle it, or is it God's responsibility to handle it? So I gave the example last night, and a lot of times there's some examples here they give, like marital problems. Is it your problem to fix, or is it God's problem to fix? Conflict with someone. Is it yours or is it God's? Job problems and sick problems. So I went with the conflict one.
Okay.
And I'm going to preach on the conflict one today, I guess.
Preach it, Eric. Preach it.
So my example last night was, if there's a kid picking on another kid at school, and every day he walks down the hall and he shoulder checks this kid into the locker.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens like 4 or 5 days in a row. And this kid's like, we used to be friends. Why is he hitting me like this?
Right.
And so that kid goes home and he's a really faithful kid, childlike faith kid. And he wants to pray to God and say, God, I need you to help me fix this situation with this other kid. And he goes, all right, God, show me and give me the wisdom to know how and when to do your will, to resolve this conflict, because your word says that we are supposed to work out all conflict with each other. And then if we can't work it out, to involve a mediator. So maybe that person maybe they're part of the same chess club.
Right.
So I gave the example that when you're walking down the hall and he shoulder checks you, from your backside laying on the hall with an audience is not the time to say, hey, what's your problem?
Right.
Right? Because he's just going to swell up and have a problem there and people to show off in front of him.
Yeah.
Or he might beat you more. Who knows?
Right.
That's not the time for conflict resolution. Yes. Conflict resolution and God's interaction might be that you're in chess club and it's picture day. And the teacher calls you in to get your chess club picture, and it's just the two of you and the teacher. And the teacher goes, oh, the photographer's taking a 10-minute lunch break. It's just going to be us three in a room. Mm-hmm. And that's the moment where you go, thank you, God.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, dude, why have you been so mean to me?
Right.
Because in that situation, you will deactivate his bulliness, because who's he going to bully you in front of?
Yes.
The teacher's there. You're safe. And you might have to be able to solve this, and you find out, and I'd use the example that maybe that kid said something or got told something by somebody else, and it started this whole misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And so God will interact in that situation, but it's not your responsibility to fix it. God will show you when to make the resolution happen.
Yeah.
So you got to do a responsibility check.
It's. I love that you're talking about this, because I wrote this down because I thought it was in my Bible in a Year reading, and I love this proverb that was at the end, and I thought, man, this is so true. But this is Proverbs chapter 19, verse 3. It says, man's own folly, right? So man's own foolishness leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord. And like, how many times will we do something utterly stupid and childish and immature, and then we blame God for it? If you can't feed your children and you're begging God for, oh God, I need more money, I need a better job to feed my kids. But yeah, you've got a 400,000 RV parked in your driveway.
Yeah.
Well, you don't blame God for that. Like, you've made some poor choices. And so, but I think we often go through life blaming God for things that aren't his, like he didn't do it in the first place, and it's really not his job to fix. Yeah. It's our responsibility to fix.
Well, I'll do mine. This is a self-check for me that, I don't know, it's been 3 years now. I had a person come into my life, and I felt it was a God-given encounter. We'll go with encounter.
Okay.
And I thought, man, God, thank you for sending my person. Thank you for everything you've done. They're awesome. They're amazing. And we were having our first real deep conversation one night, and I said something about being a Christian, and they're like, nah, I don't believe in God. And my immediate reaction was run really fast.
Yep.
And as I often hear from God, in that moment, I'm thinking in my head, as they are communicating to me, run. And I hear God saying, trust me. Mm-hmm. And I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to continue to allow you to be God, and I'm going to be me, and I'm going to not do anything other than just be in communication with this person. Well, fast forward to stupidity and DIY lifestyle. I tried to hurry things beyond God's plan. Mm-hmm. And It didn't work. And 3 years later, I'm still sitting here, and every time I pray to God about this situation in this relationship, it's trust me. And I've had this conversation with Amy, and she's giving me eyes now like, I know we've had this conversation. And I don't know what God's doing in this situation, but I have to have the trust in him to continue to be myself, not to rush anything, not to be anything different than what I am. But I have to know that at some way he's working. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know how he's doing it. And I don't know what this situation's going to come into. But I have to have trust in him. And if I take it upon myself to say, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to fail, because that's not my responsibility. Just like when you preach the gospel. When you preach the gospel to people, you can't save them.
Yeah.
You can't. Your responsibility is to preach the good news. Your responsibility is not to save people.
Mm-hmm.
God saves people. You preach the word.
Yeah.
Have that responsibility check in your life, in your prayer life, and everything you do of what is mine and what is God's. And if it takes a supernatural act to do it, it's God's.
For sure.
If it's preach the good news, that's you. God wants you to do that. If it's to talk out your differences with somebody, that's your responsibility. God will give you the way, give you the understanding, give you the knowledge. But it's not yours to go to that person and be like, all right, that's it. I'm going to fix it. We got to get this over with now. Hallelujah, you're healed. It's not going to work. God's got to give you the ability, the knowledge, and the wisdom to show you how to right a conflict.
Well, I think if I've learned anything from my time at Big Blue in the last 5 years, it really is the power of the gospel. Because, you know, when you're still in that very young Christian phase, and I think, was it Peter that writes about how, like, you start with milk and then you work up to solid foods, and it is like God rarely takes somebody and automatic. I mean, look at Moses, look at David, look at these like titans of faith. Like, he still needed to grow them and make them wait just as much as us. So it's very rare that he's going to give you this born again moment and just throw you out into the mission field. He might, but it's a little bit more rare. But for me, it's like, I guess in my earlier years, I just didn't believe the power of that spoken word. There's no way just telling somebody about Jesus is going to amount to anything. I felt like I needed to do this whole, like, Inesh D'Souza kind of debate and talk to them about the foundation of the universe, the beginning of time, and how God created them. And like, I felt like they needed so much evidence to convince a skeptic. And but it's because I thought it was all on me. So I had to have like volumes of things ready to show them and convince them. But God's like, just tell them the good news, and like, I'll do the rest of it. Like, you just tell them about me. So,
well, we talked in our hearing from God, and sometimes he'll give you their mail. He'll give you what you need if you're in tune with him and intimate with him.
Mm-hmm.
He'll give you that moment, like, you're going to preach the word to this person. But first, I need you to say, your uncle's going to be okay in the hospital.
Yeah.
And they're going to look at you and go, how do you know that? Let me tell you about God.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you about what Jesus did on the cross and who God is. And in that moment, they know you're real. They know you're authentic. They know that that's who you are and who God is.
Well, and they're not going to be a King Agrippa, because I know you like to talk about.
I love King Agrippa.
They're not going to be King Agrippa. They're not going to say, you almost convinced me. They're going to be like, what in the world is going on? Like, and then you're like, exactly. It's not of the world.
Yeah. But sometimes God's not going to give you that mail.
Yeah.
He's just going to give you the word.
Yep.
And it may be 6 months, 8 years. And that person's going to go, the gospel. I've heard that.
Yeah.
And it's going to change their life. Sometimes it's an instant fix. Sometimes it's not. But what's your responsibility is to preach the word. That's all Jesus said.
That's it.
All right. So before we leave today, the Serenity Prayer on page 70.
Okay. Ooh, my dad loved this one.
I'm going to let Amy read it because I struggle with reading. It's at the top of page 70.
This way? This one, say to them, Miss Shirley.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on 72.
there.
Okay, goodness. Yes, the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a good place to stop. Just ponder that.
Yes.
Can we get it again?
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a good thought to leave on.
It sure is.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.